It's Rocky. Welcome to Richer Soul, episode 100. Wow, what a journey it has been. Before we go back and look at that journey, a couple things I want to say. First, I want to shout out to Simeon, my audio engineer, for making us sound amazing. I know how much work it is for him, and I've seen the work and how he takes myself and all my flubs, and he makes our guests sound so amazing. Without him, most of you would have probably tuned out having to deal with all those mistakes that we make. It's cool that with technology, we can fix it all. Thank you to all of you listening. I truly appreciate it. And I'd love to hear your feedback on how things are going in your life. Today, we're going to have some exciting giveaways and some special offers for you. So stay tuned and let's get rolling. Imagine it's 12 months from now, and you've achieved your major life goals. How does it feel to be in the best shape of your life, to wake up energized, excited about the day, to have great relationships and friends who support you and propel you forward? Small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. Matthew 7:14. Over the past 100 episodes, we've learned a lot, and certain themes keep showing up. Regardless of the story and the person's path, they all share some common themes that allowed them to have success and create the path for living a thrilling life. We're going to look at some of those themes today. It's been 5 years since I bought the domain name Richer Soul and began working on building this. Some of the early years were really slow. I struggled with writing blog posts. It's not my thing, and because I refuse to take the time to go back and edit my work, the results aren't great, and it takes quite a bit of time. I'm learning more about that now, and I'm continually improving myself. Once the podcast started, I was able to consistently create new content and share it on a weekly basis. It's been a lot of fun these last 2 years, and I've been able to meet some amazing people and have some great conversations with many of my friends. It was a struggle in the beginning learning everything I needed to know to get started and to create the system so I could keep on moving and get things done quickly. I'm happy I put in all that effort because I can now help others to see a new path and take action today to find that road that leads to life and help you become the few that are able to do so. If you've had success from one of these ideas you've learned here, please let me know. Later in the show, I'm going to share some giveaways for those of you who do. Let's start with a short story of a researcher and his assistant who went out to survey people about happiness in life. Now, this occurred a long time ago during the Depression. They were out in the countryside interviewing people, and they came upon an older shack later in the day. The house was pretty run down, and there was a cow in the backyard. They knocked on the door and were greeted by the owner, who was wearing well-worn clothes. The man was nice enough to invite them in and answered their survey questions. As it was late in the day, and there isn't much in the way of hotels or businesses in that area, the man was nice enough to invite them to stay for dinner and spend the night. The place wasn't so nice, but they had little choice, and so they spent the night and enjoyed his company. They learned the family wasn't very happy, and they barely got by. They spent their day tending to the cow and living off what little milk it produced. They were stuck in life, and it was during the Depression, and so it kind of seemed like a gloomless existence. In the morning, the researcher and his assistant thanked the family and they left. As they walked away, the researcher told his assistant to go back and kill the cow. The assistant was shocked and could not believe what he was being asked to do. He knew it was their only means of survival. As it was, they were destitute to begin with. He said he didn't want to. The researcher again demanded that his assistant go back and kill the cow or he'd be in trouble. Seeing no way out, the assistant went back and killed the cow, and they left town quickly. The assistant was horrified by what he did, and a few years later, he went back to check on the family. As he pulled up, he was shocked to see that the place had been built up nicely and was painted beautifully. The lawn was well manicured, and the field was growing full of vegetables, and animals were roaming throughout the area. He knocked on the door, and he was greeted by a nicely dressed man who was smiling ear to ear. He looked kind of familiar. The assistant asked what happened to the family that used to live there, and the man said they've been living there all his life. He asked what happened to the place, as it looked so different. The man explained that they had a cow, and they were barely surviving. And one day, someone killed their cow. Because the cow was their only means of support, they had to figure out what they could do. And as they thought through it, they realized the family had farmed the land in the past and that it was quite fertile. They started to plant crops, and they began to sell the produce quite quickly. They used the money to plant more crops and to buy more animals to raise. Because they had no other choice, they were forced to do something different. The man smiled and said, "I don't know why someone killed that cow, but it was the greatest blessing he had ever received." The assistant now realized why he had to kill the cow. So, that's our theme today. Kill the cow. What cows are holding you back, and what changes do you need to make to ensure 2019 is going to be an amazing and thrilling year for you? We've heard a lot of money stories from our guests. Many of them started out in a variety of different places. A lot of them started out with next to nothing growing up. The point is, the past does not dictate the future. How you grew up, what happened in the past, has no bearing on your future and what you have the opportunity to do going forward. Some of our guests have had near-death experiences that help them to reevaluate their lives, or I should say, force them to reevaluate their lives. You don't need that near-death experience to force you to reevaluate your life. It's a choice you can make in an instant to say, it's time for change. This past year has been full of death for us. We've seen close friends and family pass away. The last conversation I had with my mother-in-law, she said she lived a great life and did what she wanted, and she had no regrets. It's a theme I see popping up from a lot of people we lost this year. Will you have regrets on your deathbed? I know for me, the only regret I would have is I haven't had a chance to watch my kids continue to grow up and have the life events that are in front of them, such as marriage, grandkids. It's more so a regret of not being here in the future. It's not regrets of the life I have lived. We've had a few guests who have terminal days every week. They are basically a day of living as if it was their last day to be alive. I have to say, I love the idea. And I need to find a way to create more space that allows that to happen for me. And I need to decide on the adventures that I still want to take. For the most part, I've cleared my bucket list, which is really cool. So what is it that you want? You can't look to someone else for this answer. And I think that's what many of us do. We're always trying to find the answer in someone else. The reality is, the answer is within ourselves. We each have our own unique life puzzle to create. And that definitely requires the time and space to think through it. Meditation is one of the ways to start having those thoughts, as well as asking the question, is it true? We've had quite a few guests on who've talked about meditation and mindfulness. And Damian Lupo spent over $1 million on improving himself and sharing that question, is it true? It's time to question everything and to find out why we do it. The clear message from many of our guests is that you first need to know your why, your purpose, your goals, and your core values. And you need to understand the motivation behind it. The last thing we want to be is part of the Walking Dead, where we're dying inside while living a long life. We learned in the episode with Doug Faith how he pivoted in college after seeing what life on Wall Street would look like for him, and knowing it wasn't in alignment with his goals. You have to realize the sunk costs and time should not hold you back from the future that you want. At the end of the day, we're all looking for happiness and to live a thrilling life. And the reality is, those are side effects of the journey. They are not the destination. It's when we learn to have gratitude for what we have. If you're listening to this podcast, you're probably in the top 1% of the world. And the reality is, you only need to make a little over $30,000 a year to be there. If you don't believe me, you can check it out on globalrichlist.com. This kind of illustrates the point that life is 10% what happens and 90% your reaction to it. What's your reaction to knowing that you're in the top 1% of the world income? And for many of you, the top 0.5% or 0.25%, or maybe even the top 0.1% of world income. Are you living that thrilling life? We learned a lot about that with Jake Eagle as we talked about what it means to live a thrilling life. And the reality of it is, it's not the money. Sure, we do need the money, but money is nothing more than the fuel that creates the opportunities that we can have a thrilling life. There's another key point that keeps popping up, and that is to be intentional in everything. Know why you're doing it. Otherwise, you're living life's lottery, and you may never get picked. Having a mission statement and reminders of what you want in life. We heard that from Tom Sylvester as he talked about how he has personal quotes on his monitors to remind him of his why. But those are his quotes. They aren't your quotes. You have to figure out for yourself what are your defining driving factors. There is one way to guarantee that you are picked, and that is to choose yourself. To conquer yourself and your mind that holds you back from success. It sounds so simple, but like everything else that we talk about today, it's hard. I just want you to know that you are enough, you have permission, and maybe you need to ask yourself, what's the cost of your inaction? Is it regrets? You don't get a do-over at the end of life, so make sure you're enjoying your time and doing what's right every day in alignment with what you want out of life. One of the first steps is to change the lens that we look at our life through, to look at our situation differently. This takes time and introspection, and it may take you a year or longer to answer that question. However, there are some faster ways. All of our guests who are successful have had mentors, coaches, masterminds, and lessons from others, either through books or courses or learning from someone else on the journey. As you know, I've spent tens of thousands of dollars on improving myself, and we had an entire episode on that. As you make these leaps, ensure, though, that you have a risk mitigation plan in place. You don't want to crash and burn as you're making changes in your life. There's a lot of very small baby steps that you can take and create a solid way forward that helps you remove those risks. You have to ask for help. Don't think you can go it alone. Having people helps you to reduce the number of mistakes you make and to get to your destination faster. Back in episode 14, we had David Greer to talk about the power of coaching and how he helped me to get this podcast launched. I'm still shocked at how few people took him up on his offer that I took when I was at the conference that he was at. If you want to see about the power of coaching and see what the experience is like, you can listen to many of the coaching calls that we've had under the coaching call tabs on Richer Soul, and you'll get to experience what others go through. But here's the real thing. Here's what one of my coaching clients said when I asked him how it's going. Amazing. I landed my highest paying client a few weeks ago. My work-life balance is great. Have a solid church and meeting great motivated new people, and more opportunities, friendships, and networks keep opening up. I've been more constantly energetic and motivated in the past month than I've possibly been the rest of my life. What would it mean to you if you could say that? The reason he was able to achieve this success is because he spent the time to understand what he wanted in life and started taking the steps to achieve it. Taking the time out to think about it, to write it down, and then start executing on the plan leads to this type of success and those kinds of feelings. I'm going to put a link into the show notes for the Wheel of Life from Richer Soul. This exercise helps you look at your health, money, time, relationships, and spirituality, and put a rank on how each of these are doing in your life. Once you know where you are, you can start to improve in the areas that are pulling you down the most. You should also take a self-inventory of your skills and deficits. As you think through what you want in life, this will help you to see what you need to improve to move forward. At the core is having control over our money so we can use it in alignment with our whys. It's the fuel that allows us to live life and to make the choices we want to make. Regardless of where you are in your journey, you must always know where your cash is flowing and what your balance sheet looks like. This allows you to build wealth and know how much you need. I'm going to put links in the show notes to the spreadsheets and the videos on how to build these. While we're talking about money, let's start with our first giveaway. I have a few copies of Tony Robbins' book, Unshakable, Your Guide to Financial Freedom, which is about how to create peace of mind in a volatile world. Here's how the giveaway is going to work. Email richersoul@gmail.com. In the title, put Tony, and just tell me one thing you've learned or enjoyed by listening to Richer Soul. I will go back through them and pick from the entries and send out a few copies of the book. Please be sure to include your address for where I'm mailing it. This promotion's only going to take place until December 11th, 2018. Also, from the ease of a shipping perspective, this is only for US-based addresses. Don't worry, I have something for the rest of you who are from the other 45 countries who listen to the show. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Before we dig too much into money, I think we need to cover the fact that when it comes to building wealth, 80% of it is your mindset. 20% are the tactics that we use. Too often, people are focused on the tactics and not on the mindsets of building wealth and getting rich. Mindsets are how we look at things. Do you remember how Henrietta, the rubber chicken, saved Steve Lawton's life? And how many of our guests have had a life-changing incident that caused them to reevaluate everything they were doing in their life? We don't need that near-death experience to make a change. You just have to make the decision. And just like many of them, it's going to take years after you make that choice to get the results that you want. We also need to forgive ourselves as we learn from Sarah Lee Kane and her money story. Sometimes we just need the permission to do what we want. And again, today, I remind you, you have the permission to live your dreams. Make sure you take small leaps with a parachute. I don't want you to crash and burn. So let's talk a little bit about that. I think the one underlying thing that prevents so many of us from taking that step is fear. And part of that is the way we're wired. Our brains were designed for a different time, and the world has dramatically changed. Your brain was designed to keep you safe. It wasn't designed to make you happy, as we've learned from many of our episodes. And that fear holds us back from the success that we want. And we have to learn to overcome that. It's not easy, but one of the ways to do that is mindfulness. And we've talked about that in many episodes, and we're going to continue to talk about it. And I think one of the best ways to overcome fear is to question it, not to push it away, but to accept it and then ask, is it really true? I think we have a tendency to catastrophize. Your mind is designed to do that. It's always looking for things that it wants to save you from. And overcoming that and questioning it and constantly analyzing it is how we overcome those fears that allow us to get ahead. The fear will never disappear. Even the most richest people still have fears at the end of the day. But they overcome them, they step through them, and they learn that the things that are fearful aren't really true. And at the end of the day, you are either growing or dying. And as for me, I surely don't want to die. What about you? The difference between success and failure comes down to very small differences. It's showing up and taking the small steps when you don't want to. You don't have to invest over $1 million like Damian Lupo did in yourself unless you want to. All we have to do is listen and learn from Damian and his experience instead of spending on it ourselves. The reality is many of you have already probably invested a ton in yourself already by paying for college. And unfortunately, as we've talked about in some of the episodes, they never taught you what was important in life. Luckily, we live in an amazing time where all the information you need is literally free and accessible on the internet. Finding the right information is really the difficult part. It's creating those little hacks, the little mind games we play with ourselves, and the people we surround ourselves with. Our words are what lead to our thoughts, and our thoughts to our actions. So be careful of the words that you use. We don't talk enough about this, I think, as a society, of the fears that come out and how they hold us back from the success that we want. We all have upper limit problems. It's the fear of moving up to that next level, and it doesn't matter what level you're at. Too often, we don't question these, and we get into our habits and routines. If you think about it, the majority of your day is run by habits and routines. Have you ever gotten in your car and driven to work and didn't even realize how you got there? You didn't even remember the journey? That's the way our life is. We don't question. We don't challenge. We don't think. We get distracted by our phones or by something else or by the TV. And it isn't until we stop and we go inside and we overcome ourselves that is going to change. So it's about creating the space and the time for you to be able to do that. And that's kind of where money comes in. Money allows us to buy time. And there's lots of ways to increase revenue, and we've talked about a few on the show. Real estate is one popular way. However, you need to know what you're doing. Side businesses or just creating a large stock portfolio is another way to do this. Job hopping also helps to increase your income. If you own a business, putting profit first in your business plan is definitely the way to go. At the end of the day, you need to pay yourself first. If you're interested in real estate, there's a real estate tab on the website for you to go listen to all the real estate episodes. I will tell you today, as we're looking at the real estate market, things are considerably cooling down. And I'm hearing this in many different areas. So it may not be the best time to get involved, but it is the best time to learn. Thankfully, we just got an offer on one of our houses that we're looking to sell. I still have 2 more that need to be sold. And I've got another one that slowly we're finishing on getting the work done so that we can get it on the market. I got into the market at the right time. 2011, things were way down, and they were great years to buy. Now things seemed a little bit overheated, and things are slowing down. It was like this in 1999 when we bought our current home, because interest rates had gone up, just like they are now. Back then, they were around 8% for a mortgage. Think about that. We seem to forget what life used to be like. 8% mortgages today would probably freak people out. When we think about investing, though, we need to listen to some of the experts. Todd Tresidder and Lawrence Bensdorf talked about an investment process. It's extremely important that when it comes to money and investing, whether it's real estate, stocks, or other paper assets, or a business, having the investment process helps to ensure success. That's what makes investing different than gambling. Every time I've lost money, and I've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars, it's because I didn't have a system or process in place. And because I didn't follow the system, I followed my emotions. Taking the time to create the system and write down your goals and action steps is time consuming. And it's no wonder most people don't. But when you do and you follow it, it helps to take the fear and greed out of the process. I'm still working on creating more of these systems in my life and improving the ones I currently have. You can even create systems to make money. That's what Mark Podolsky did with his land flipping strategy that we learned about. Every part of his life has systems incorporated, so he can actually go out and live life, and he doesn't spend his time on doing the drudgery of the work. Once you get the money down, you get the freedom to make choices. The ability to say no, to say yes, to do what you want. We've had many guests on who created financial freedom and are living life on their terms at an early age. It's possible when you're intentional. We've also had many guests who talked about money mindsets. In episode 44, Robin Crane. 51, Michael K. 49, Andy Wong. 57, Roger Whitney. 60, Daniel Crosby. Oh, If I had learned those mistakes from Daniel Crosby, I'd have a couple $100,000 more, if not more, in my pocket. 81 with Janet Tyler Johnson, 85 with Adam Carroll. Clearly, money mindsets are important. We need to change our relationship with money. It's a tool to serve us. And as we just talked about, we need to understand how to use it and to do so properly. As we listen to all our guests talk about how they learned about money growing up, one thing is clear. Where you come from doesn't matter. Your lack of money education or being rich or poor growing up was irrelevant to success later in life. Sure, it helps, but we can overcome our background and make a choice to live life on our terms and create an abundance of money. So many of our guests have become millionaires and stepped out of the rat race, like Justin from Root of Good, or Ed Mills as a teacher, and Todd Tressiter through following money management and understanding the game. Each had a different path, and each has a different level of money that they're comfortable with. We all have our own thermostat on money, and you need to be comfortable with that. What I mean by this is, some people need $1 million. Some people need $10 million. Some people need $1 billion. But that's up to you individually. What's the level of money and the life you're comfortable with? That's the question you need to ask. The money allows us to buy time and to have freedom. So, what do I mean by time and freedom? I'd like to share with you a story from a book I recently read, The New Retirement Mentality by Mitch Anthony. One day, my daughter asked me to come out and play. I said, "No, honey, Daddy's too busy." My daughter said, "You're always too busy," and went out to play. That night, I kept turning it over in my head. Why do I work hard? Answer, to get freedom. Why do I want freedom? Answer, to spend time with those I love. When am I going to have this freedom or make getting it a priority? Answer, probably about the time my kids are gone. I realized I had put myself in a vicious cycle of motion and money and had everything turned upside down. Ted, 39 years old. I've told you I've made a lot of mistakes in life, and that is not one of them. I made sure that I created a life that gave me time, the time to do the things that I love to do and to spend time with my kids so that I could be there watching them grow up. I was able to go on their school trips. I was able to coach their little league and their soccer teams. I'm able to coach the robotics team. I'm able to do so much with them and take them on amazing vacations all over the world because I made sure to create the time to be able to do that with them. Because that was important to me. It was one of my core values, and it always has been. So that comes back to the question, how do we get time? How do we create time? And that comes back to systems. And it comes back to the 80-20 rule, which states that 20% of our efforts allow us to achieve 80% of the results. And 40% of our efforts allow us to achieve 96% of the results. Figuring out what that 40% is really the question. And that takes the time to ask, why are you doing what you're doing, and is it worth it? Coming back to our theme, there's a lot of cows that need killing here. What are the things that you're doing that take up time and provide no value and prevent you from the success that you want? What would you do if you had $31 million? Would you give it all away? Would you do it without thinking? The reality is you have 31 million seconds next year. We all get them, regardless of who you are. The question is, what are you going to do with your 31 million seconds? We seem to have no trouble giving our time away to frivolous things that don't bring us value in our lives. Many of us sell our time for too little value, and we can never get it back. Teresa McCloy and Frank McNaughty shared a number of systems to take back that time from the 12-week year, which I also know that Aaron Walker uses, and so do many of the people in my mastermind. It helps to bring massive focus and attention to what needs to be done, and everything else gets pushed aside. I'm struggling with this one because I have to put in the work up front. but I know it's worth it. Thankfully, I've built many systems in my life, but I'm continuing to improve those. And I think I'm going to look strongly at the 12-week year. I know I try to do everything. And by trying to do everything, sometimes you don't get anything done. I've spent a lot of time on introspection about the future and time. I'm about to turn 53, and I'm looking forward to the next 30 years, to 83. And as I do that, I think back to what's occurred over the past 30 years. That would put me at 23. I realize I still have a lot to do, and 30 years is a lot of time. I realize also that over those past 30 years, that every 10 years or so, I get a whole new set of desires, a whole new set of goals, a whole new set of outlooks. And I know, for me, things are constantly changing. I'm launching 2 kids off to college, which is going to give me a massive amount of my time back. And I'm thinking about my goals going forward for the next 30 years, because they're dramatically different from when I was 23, and they're probably going to change dramatically from where I am today. But we have to continue doing the work. This reminds me of an old story, and I don't know who wrote it, and it kind of refers to the grind of life. There once was a man who was asleep in his cabin, and suddenly the cabin was filled with light, and God appeared to him. The Lord told him he had work for him to do, and he showed him a large rock, explaining that he was to push against the rock with all his might. The man did it, and for many days and weeks he toiled from sun up to sundown, his shoulders set squarely against the cold, massive surface of the rock, pushing with all his might. Each night, the man, at the end of the day, returned to his cabin, sore and worn out, feeling his whole day had been spent in vain. Seeing that the man showed signs of discouragement, the devil decided to enter the picture, placing thoughts in the man's mind such as, "Why kill yourself over this? You're never going to move that rock. Boy, you've been at it a long time and you haven't even scratched the surface," giving the man the impression that the task was impossible and the man was an unworthy servant because he wasn't moving the massive stone. These thoughts discouraged and disheartened the man, and he started to ease up in his efforts. "Why kill myself?" he thought. "I'll just put in my time, putting forth just the minimum effort, and that will be good enough." And this he did, or at least he planned on doing, until he decided to take his troubles back to God. "Lord," he said, "I've labored hard and long in your service, putting forth all my strength to do what you asked me. And after all this time, I haven't even budged that rock, even a 0.5 millimeter. What's wrong? Why am I failing?" The Lord responded compassionately. "My friend, when long ago I asked you to serve me, you accepted. I told you to push against the rock with all your strength, and that you have done. But never once did I mention that I expected you to move it, or at least not by yourself. Your task was to push, and now you come to me, your strength spent, thinking that you have failed, ready to quit. But is it really so? Look at yourself. Your arms are strong and muscled, your back sinewed and brown, your hands are calloused from constant pressure, and your legs have become massively hard. Through opposition, you've grown much, and your ability now surpasses that which you used to have. Yet still, you haven't succeeded in moving the rock. And you come to me now with a heavy heart and your strength spent. I, my friend, will move the rock. Your calling was to be obedient and push, and to exercise your faith and trust in my wisdom, and this you have done." As I look at my life, and I look back 30 years, sometimes I think I'm just like that man struggling against the rock, barely moving it, and having no success. But then when I sit down and I take inventory of my life, and I look at the wealth that I have built, the kids that I've raised, my success, how I've overcome myself, it's amazing. And I think that's what happens to a lot of us. We look out and we just compare ourselves to yesterday, but not to 30 years ago, to the success that we have built over time. And yet in the day-to-day, it feels like that man pushing that rock and us getting nowhere. But the reality is we do get somewhere. And it's like the compound interest curve. For years and years, things barely budge. But one day when they do and that curve changes, wow, it's amazing. It's amazing what happens going forward. At this point, let's do another giveaway. I have 3 more books that I'd like to give away. I have 1 copy of each of these. The first one is The Conscious Entrepreneur's Guide to Creating Wealth. That's by Michael Mapes. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And View from the Top, Living a Life of Significance from Aaron Walker, who was on one of our episodes and will be on again shortly to talk to us again. If you'd like one of these books, just put the name of the book in the title and email richersoul@gmail.com and tell me one thing you've learned or enjoyed by listening to Richer Soul or how it's changed your life. I'll go through these entries and pick one out and send one of the copies of the book to you. Just let me know which one you want and make sure to include your address. Again, this promotion's only going to go through December 11th, 2018. And again, this is only for our US-based listeners. But I still have one more giveaway that's going to be for anyone in the world. So hang tight for that one. As we're talking about time, one of the biggest things that's come up is health. Because as I look forward 30 years and seeing people pass away, I know how important my health is going to be going forward. At my age, I'm starting to see a massive divergence between myself and others. It seems so many years behind me of compounding decisions that I have made are now starting to show up. I never imagined that I'd be deadlifting close to 300 pounds at this point in my life, but I do. I enjoy how it makes me look and feel, but I'm not thrilled about getting up and going to the gym. But what's really cool is the strength that it's allowed me to have. I recently got to test out a new product. It's equipment that's designed to strengthen your skeletal system. You may not be aware of this, but our bones are constantly breaking down and rebuilding themselves every day. As we age, our bones tend to get more brittle, and that leads to osteoporosis. There are osteoblasts and osteoclasts that manage this whole process. And what this company has found out is that by exerting 4.2 times your body weight against your skeletal system, it allows your body to start the process and signal the process of building more bones. And so it sets off this system. They have a machine that's built for strengthening your legs, and I got a chance to sit on it and try it out. It only takes a minute, and basically what you do, it's kind of like a leg press. You put pressure against the plate and literally strengthen out your legs to get this whole process going. And so I sat down and I started pushing, and over time, my legs almost went straight, which kind of freaked the guy out because he was watching the screen as I was, and I hit about 1,800 pounds of pressure at one point, and then I just kept going because I knew I had a little bit more. And at the end, I actually cleared over 2,000 pounds of pressure on my skeletal system, which is probably 11 to 12 times my body weight. Remember, you only need 4.2, 4.3 to set off the system to get your bones to grow. He looked at me and went, "Wow, you're strong." And that, of course, put a smile on my face. But the reality is, it took a lot of time and effort for me to get to the point where I can do that. And I do that because my health is important. It's the one thing that you will spend all your money to recover when you lose it. So why not make some small choices now? I know we haven't spent as much time on this as I want to. We've had a couple episodes dedicated to health with Aaron Choi in 87 and Simon Hun in episode 22. And I know we've touched on it with some of our guests in the past. Good health is like building wealth. It takes time and choices, and the results don't come today. They come over a lifetime. So many amazing advances are coming, like that machine that I just told you about. We are designed to move. We need to get good fuel into our bodies, and we've been sold commercial crap and a corn-fed meat diet. And the only reason they feed animals corn is to fatten them up fast. And you wonder why we have such a problem in the United States right now with weight. Many of our other guests have had great nutritional and health routines, and sometimes we just don't get to it on the episode. I'm going to work on getting more guests on to talk about how to properly fuel your body. If you can figure out your unique needs for eating and moving, you can be like me and be in the best shape of your life at an older age. Our medical systems are great for emergencies, but we are not good at chronic care. And a lot of chronic conditions are actually caused by our lifestyles. But most people want to put a Band-Aid on it, take a pill, and most doctors don't have the time to dig into your needs or the time to motivate you to change. The other problem is doctors don't treat you holistically. Each one has their own specialty, and they do not veer out of their lanes. Our bodies are designed to heal themselves. That's why sometimes you get a temperature. It's a self-regulating system, and our bodies can do so much. Too often, though, we aren't putting the right fuel in, and we aren't letting our bodies do their job. And we are also not moving and driving forth our bodies through exercise. There is a lot of research coming out in this area. You are going to see so many dramatic medical changes in the not too distant future. And they aren't going to be pills and drugs, because that's not how to create health. It's going to be about changing what you put into your body and changing the way you move your body. And I'm excited that I get to experience so much of that going forward. Unfortunately, many of us use food as a reward. If we're feeling tired or stressed, or we just want to pick me up, we turn to caffeine and sugar for that quick hit, both of which over time aren't going to help you. You've got to have proper rest, proper fuel, and the proper mindsets. And when you do, you can learn to say no to all the things that aren't helping you to move forward with your health. Another area that we've had great conversations on is relationships. Some of our recent ones, 98 with Morris Sweeney, 96 with Jeff Leisowitz, and 89 with Dr. Richard come to mind. No one achieves success on their own. We all have to have people who help us by opening doors and creating opportunities. The degree of separation and the ability to connect is easier than ever. It's fear most often that stops us from reaching out. We know building relationships is nothing more than helping people achieve what they want, and they will help you too. Everyone, regardless of money, has the same fears and worries and desires. I'm always amazed at how few people actually reach out to other people, how few people ask for help, or stay stuck in their very small, tight circles. I get it. It's the way we were raised, and we all live within tribes. Sometimes you need to break out of the tribe that you're in if you want to take a step forward and have success. You also need to build a team to help you have success. In real estate, I have a team of people. That allows me to be able to do what I need to do with these houses without me spending all the time doing it. They do all the work, and I get to reap the rewards. It's the same thing in life. Having great friends, having people who pull you up instead of pull you down is important. Too often these days, though, we seem to build our relationships on social media, which is not truly a relationship. Clicking like or following people that way isn't reality. And more often than not, what you see on social media isn't real. People are putting their best foot forward. They're not talking about the hard things that are going on behind the scenes in their life. It's one of the best things that I've loved about this show is that it has allowed me to create new relationships with people and build the relationships I have with so many of my friends already. I have built such a group of support around me that it's incredible. And I'm thrilled that I finally got this part of my life into better balance. If you want success in life, you're going to have to build that team too. You're going to have to create relationships with people who are ahead of you on the journey. Because in creating those relationships, you can start to learn what are the things that I'm going to experience in 10 years or 20 years that I need to start working on now. I know for our kids, when they were young, that was the biggest thing I did. I started making relationships with people who had kids that were a bit older than ours and started to listen to their stories and their struggles. And by knowing what was coming in the years ahead, I was able to make changes so that we didn't have to face those struggles with our kids because we cut it off early. It's the same thing with my health. I see people who are 20 years older than me and I hear their struggles. And so I do something today so that I won't be in that situation in the future. The one thing that's really cool is the relationships that I build with my coaching clients and helping them to live their life on their terms. So now for the big special offer for all of you, regardless of where you are. And this is a 2-part special offer. First, I want you to be able to share your stories, your issues, and your problems with our listeners. So I'm going to offer a special offer, which is I will deal with one problem you're facing on the show, completely free. We'll spend probably half an hour on the phone digging through your problem and looking at a next step you can take in that one area of your life. So if you're willing to come on the show, share an issue you're having in any part of your life, I will coach you for free for 30 minutes as long as you're allowing us to put it on the show so that we can use your story to help others grow. The reality is we all have the same problems. They aren't much different. We just don't talk about them enough. You are going to have to do a little bit of homework and preparation for our call so that I have a better understanding of who you are and what your needs are. And the other thing is you can be totally anonymous. You don't need to have your name on the show. We can figure out how to handle that, and you can use a fake name. The second thing I'm going to do, for those of you who would prefer a private conversation and have been waiting to take action but haven't taken action yet, is to offer $200 off of a dream session of coaching. And again, this will be a completely private session. These sessions, these dream sessions, and you can hear them on the coaching call tab of other people, we will dig specifically into all the areas of your life. We'll evaluate where you are. We'll give you small steps that you can take today to move forward without risk and start building your life of success, or move you forward to the next level of success. So if you'd like to be on the episode, or if you'd like the special offer of $200 off, just email me. It's rocky@richersoul.com. And this is a different email than the book email, so remember that. And the offer is good until December 15th, 2018. So you have to act quickly. And for those of you who were paying for a private session, just understand I have a money-back guarantee. I don't want to take money from people who I can't help. And if I haven't helped you, I'll give you your money back because it didn't work. But I've never had a single person ask for their money back. They've all had tremendous success. They all take massive action and steps forward. And it isn't that difficult. It's literally small changes that lead to massive change in their life. It's up to you. It's your life. We've got another year that's coming to an end and another year that's starting. Wouldn't it be great to look forward one more year and see that you've made tremendous moves forward in your life? So let's move on to our next subject. And it's one that we haven't spent as much time on the show that I'd like to. And I think I'm also going to work on bringing this up more so in future episodes. And that's spirituality. We've had a couple of guests on, Scott Mader in 79, Sasha Legault in 95, Dustin Heiner in just the past episode, and Aaron Walker who was on, and many others who have very strong spiritual roots. Like health, we don't always get to it on the show, but I do talk to them sometimes before and after the shows, and we dig into those. Being part of something bigger than yourself and tapping into the universe can bring you the success and happiness and contentment and fulfillment you desire. We still have to do the hard work. The universe is a very big place. If you think about it, how many stars are out there? Millions upon millions. And somehow they're all connected. You've got to figure out what your core beliefs are around spirituality and how you connect to the universe. And then make sure that you're living in agreement with them. I think we've lost a lot of our connection. Part of that has to do with life and busyness and being distracted. I haven't talked about the book, which is also by Napoleon Hill. It was called Outwitting the Devil: The Secret to Freedom and Success. The book was written back in the 30s, but his family wouldn't let him publish it. It was too controversial, and it didn't actually get published till a few years ago. But the gist of the book is literally that the devil wins when you're in the drift. And unfortunately, even back then, so thinking the 1930s, life is designed to kind of put you into the drift. And until you stop and you say no, and you overcome your fears, and you get clear on your intentions and your purpose, and you take that step, that's when you get out of the drift, and that's when life becomes amazing. And so it's about you figuring out how you're going to connect to the universe. What's the significance you're going to make in this world? What are the things you're going to do? And that's what this show is all about. I've always said, and many of our guests have said the same things, kids don't listen to what you say. They listen to what you do. And so this show and the work behind it is showing my kids how to do, how to build relationships, how to create health, how to create wealth. And I do it by showing, not by talking. And I hope that I can keep my kids out of the drift, and I hope that I can keep you out of the drift. And that's one of the decisions that I've made. When you go to the website, you will notice that there are no ads. There's nothing flicking on the sidebar, no shiny objects to fall trap to. I'm not here for the money. It doesn't fit with my message. I prefer that you choose to buy something versus someone convincing you to buy something. And that's a struggle that you have to overcome in business, is between advertising too much in sharing a message and then using tricks to convince people to buy. And I'd rather not use any tricks. Which brings up a topic that has been showing up quite a bit recently in my life. And that is your phones. Your phones have incredible power. You have in your hands more knowledge than you could possibly read and take in. And you also have people who are building apps and things that are designed to put you into the drift, to take your attention and take your money away from you. And you've got to learn to turn those things off. You've got to get your kids away from their phones. You got to get yourself away from your phones. And you have to be intentional as to why you're getting on that device and what you're doing. How quickly we get into time sucks when we start looking at those devices, and how quickly they pull us away from what our purpose and our goals are. So going forward, I'm going to try and find some great guests to talk a little bit more about spirituality and our connection to the universe. I think one of the best ways to do that is through meditation. And I think one of the biggest things is people misunderstand what meditation really is. And the other problem is it takes a while to get into that kind of a state. I know we're going to have an episode coming up really shortly with one of my friends who is great at meditation, and there's some surprising insights in there as to how he got started. But that's where you kind of connect to the universe. I mean, that's literally what meditation is. It's about connecting to the energy that's out there in the world. So we'll spend some more time on this, and we'll dig deeper into those areas. I actually went back and listened to every episode again, and I took notes on the themes that came up over and over again. And I've shared a lot of those today with you. And the reality is over time, people really don't change. 2,000 years ago, we are the same people that we are today. Our minds work the same way. But yet the world has dramatically changed in those past 2,000 years. You have more opportunity at your fingertips than at any time in past history. Anything and Everything you want is possible. You just have to do the work, and it is work, and it's hard to get the things that you choose you want to have. You've got to build the teams around you, learn from the mistakes of others, keep showing up, push against the rock, kill your cows that are holding you back from the success you need, and just go do it. That's just the reality of it. There's no super secret that's out there. It doesn't exist. Everything you need is within you. You just need to start turning everything else off. Go inside, figure out what it is you need and want, and then start building it. I know that's scary. I think for a lot of people, the reflection in the mirror is scarier than anything else out there. So, as some of you who follow the Facebook page may already know, I just spent another 4 days with Tony Robbins, and we had done a whole episode on that. And this time around, I have to say my experience was dramatically different. It was amazing. One of the things that I learned, and it has nothing to do with Tony, was that you always kind of need to go back to the basics and do a refresher. Just like a football team comes back every year for training and for practice, we all need to go back to the basics and get the training and the practice and sharpen our skills. So at the end of the day, I think one of the biggest takeaways this time from Tony is that when it comes to money and life, 80% of it is mindset and 20% are tactics. And yet we spend all our time on tactics and never anything on the mindset. And let's face it, you know rich people who are miserable, and you probably know poor people who are happy. And so you've got to fix your mindsets and the state that you are in throughout the day. And for performance, which is what he talks about, you have to create that state. And that state is physical. If you look at somebody who's excited or you look at somebody who's depressed, you can tell that just looking at them. And so the question is then, can we make ourselves excited and thrilled by putting ourselves and our body into that physical state of looking excited and thrilled? And then does that transpose into us becoming excited and thrilled? And literally, that's what he practices for 4 days. He also brings up the underlying thing, which we've talked about on many episodes and we've heard many people speak about in the past. And that is one of the underlying human needs, which is the fact that we constantly ask the question, am I enough? And we ask it because if we don't feel we're enough, we don't feel loved. We feel like we're going to lose out on that connection. And I think that's important. Within yourselves, everyone needs to feel like they are enough. And you are enough. You are your unique person. And within that, you should be happy and be thrilled and be enough. And from that will come the fact that you are not going to lose love. I'm just going to take a couple of minutes and hit some of the highlights of what Tony talks about and how you can improve your life as we wrap up this episode. There are 6 basic universal needs that everybody in the world shares. 4 of them are primal needs and 2 of them are spiritual needs. So the first one is certainty. Everyone wants stability. You want to be certain that you have a home, that you have food on the table, that you've got money in your bank. You want life to, in a sense, be certain, and you want to know that you're safe and secure. This is probably the number one need that everybody has. The second need is uncertainty. There are a lot of us who want a little bit of spice in life. And so that is where uncertainty comes in, that variety. I think that's why we probably like sports so much. You don't know what the outcome is. There's a bit of uncertainty, which creates excitement. We can only take so much excitement in our lives, though. The third one is significance. Significance is also one of the major ones that everyone has. And it's the need to feel special and important in some way. And a lot of times we find significance through buying stuff. So the big house, the fancy car, the nice exotic trips and all of those types of things, we're buying them to create significance. Here's the problem with significance. You will never win the significance game because you can never have enough. There is always the need for more. And that's what I learned. I chased after significance for so much of my life. And when I let go of significance, everything became great. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. The next one is love and connection, right? We talk about relationships. Here's the funny thing with love and connection. Most people settle for connection because they're afraid of taking the action that will bring love. Remember, it comes back to certainty. You're okay with what you have. You're unwilling to take the risks to get love. And so we tend to settle in life. And that's probably why you see so many people with unhappy marriages. So those are the 4 primal needs. Most people have certainty and significance as their desires. And the problem is, unless you're willing to deal with uncertainty, then you're never going to have significance because you need to take big risks. And if you're stuck in certainty, that really causes major disruptions inside. So the 2 spiritual needs are growth, which is growing yourself, which we do all the time on this show. And then it's contribution. It's giving back. It's helping others. Those are kind of the higher spiritual needs. If you can live a life where your 2 primary factors or your 3 primary factors are growth, contribution, and love, you're living an amazing, thrilling life. If you're stuck on certainty and significance, which the majority of people are, you are constantly in conflict internally with yourself because you're afraid to do what you need to do to get success. And we talked about that fear, right? That's what holds us all back. You need to ask yourself, where are you with those 6 needs? What are your primary driving factors? And are you willing to change them? So here's the cool thing. When you get the money, then you have the certainty and you don't spend it for significance and you start spending it on what you love and to grow yourself and to make a contribution, life becomes abundant. And I will tell you, money is not the answer. Tony, in one of his books, the one before Unshakable that we're giving away in this episode, he talked to 50 billionaires. And he said out of the 50 billionaires, only 7 of them were truly happy. Can you imagine that? You got $1 billion and you're not truly happy? Where is the problem? Inside of you. You've got to fix the inside. So I'm just going to cover the 2 master skills of life. The first is the science of achievement. And in this case, it's about focus. It's about absolute clarity of what you want, right? Didn't we talk about this? Your purpose. Then it's about taking massive action, effective execution of that. And how do you do that? And how do you know what's right? You model people who are already successful and who have what you want. Just be sure that that's truly what you want. And then the last is grace. It's understanding that you are not the center of the universe and learning to be graceful and be thankful for what you have. And then the next one was the art of fulfillment. And to be fulfilled, 2 simple steps. You must grow as a person, which is what we do here every single episode. It's what I do. I grow as a person by creating this content. And you must give. You must give back to the world. And that's why this whole podcast is built on that exact framework. It's about me growing and learning and then sharing that knowledge with you. And that's what leads me to living a fulfilled life. So that's kind of the highlights of the weekend. It's also a lot that he did on health and wealth. And if you ever get a chance to go see him, I highly recommend it. You can also check out so much of what he has to offer on YouTube. He's got tons of free content out there. Again, the world is at your fingertips. It's all there for you. You've got to spend the time figuring out what you want, look inside, and do the work inside of you. And then just go make it happen. So I encourage you, take advantage of some of the special offers if you'd like one of the books. If you'd just like to email me, I love to hear from you, hear how your life has changed, how something I've helped share has helped you have success. And if there's something I can improve let me know that too. Email me and say, hey, if you did this, the show would be better. I'd love to get your feedback. And we haven't talked much about that, but everyone who's great has to accept feedback. Feedback is a gift, and we have to learn to accept it and to incorporate it. But always ask the question, right? Is it true? Is the feedback you're getting real? And is the person who's giving it to you for your good or for their good? We've got some really exciting episodes coming up in the near future that may help you to go inside yourself. And they'll be coming out in the next couple of weeks. I thank you for listening. And if you found today's episode great and you're still listening, I'd love for you to share it with others that you think it could help. Again, that's how you build your team. That's how you build your relationships and your success, by sharing things with others and helping them to move forward in your life. And that's one of the biggest problems I think that we face, is finding those people who actually want to get out of the drift and do something. It comes back to the same thing that we've talked about in so many episodes, that 1 to 3% of people who keep pushing forward, who have the life of their dreams, who have the happiness, the success, the health, the wealth, the time. It's not about being a billionaire. It's about being comfortable in your own skin and having your desires. It's possible. Thank you so much. Have an abundant week.